Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa ta'ala wa barakatuh. My name is Mohammed Solomon. You're in tune to Islamic Action TV.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Simon Marciniak and you are watching Islamic Action TV.
Subhanallah. Now, brother, Simon, we've been looking obviously at law, how it affects us as British Muslims, or Muslims who are in Britain, shall we say, rather than British Muslims, these labels that we keep on throwing at us.
It's important because my last topic was talking about Muslims who might be ignorant of the laws, who think they may be able to behave in the way they did it.
Yes.
You know, so if you're a new immigrant to the UK, you may not understand that the way you behaved in Pakistan, Afghanistan, where it is, fits in necessarily with how you fit in the UK. So it's about making people aware on a generational basis of the problems they may face if they come to the UK. So I think, your distinction of it.
Yeah, I think that's actually key, because I think one of the things you find, viewers, is that we do find that when people who come here, the so-called heritage Muslims come here, they perhaps may have a different concept of law. So they'll have, for example, the Islamic Shariah law concept, and then they also may have the laws of their indigenous land.
Yeah.
So there's almost like a meshing of the two when they come to England, and sometimes
they're tribal, where the little group.
Oh, they're intra-tribal allegiances, isn't it? So you may find when they come here, there is these issues around how do they fit into a universal British law, how do they adapt to it, but at the same time, how do they wrestle with all the cultural norms and folkways and mores of their own particular law?
Yeah.
I think that's a train. I think it's about not, but this move on swiftly. Yeah. But so I mean, now we're looking, now that we obviously we're looking at as Britons, as Muslims in Britain, how do we kind of how do we understand law for ourselves? The key point, which I think is important, which we're looking into, is the fact that we have to appreciate that the law applies to us all. Is that correct to say?
Yeah. So a law that applies to a Christian is meant to apply equally to a Muslim. I gave the example a few minutes ago of the case which was brought by a Christian who wanted to wear the cross in his workplace. In one case, the European court agreed and said yes, you can. In another case, where the working in a hospital said no, you can't. And I wanted to project that in an Islamic context, and to show how, for example, wearing a necklace with a crescent moon may be viewed lawfully in one respect, but unlawfully in another. And Muslims in particular, may not be aware that something as innocuous, a necklace or a bracelet or a ring or whatever it happens to be, can be restricted in certain contexts, particularly if it interferes with your relations with other people. I think that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, but the thing is, well, where do we draw the line between freedom of expression and freedom of speech? So on one hand, obviously, you've got a situation where, hey, I want to wear my dhul fikar. I'm a Shia Muslim, proud Shia Muslim. I want to wear the necklace represents Imam Ali alayhi salam, the sword of Imam Ali alayhi salam, dhul fikar, very famous sword in Islamic history. Irrespective of sex, everybody realizes that dhul fikar was the sword of Ali, and so I want to wear it. And why would that be an issue if we're in a country which espouses freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of thought? I mean, do you think maybe there's points where the law is being used in the political way to kind of label certain groups, profile certain groups, and to create a kind of a discriminationary feeling in the wider society?
Well, this is where I think the tension is, because the example you gave of the sword, the Islamic sword, in an absolute sense, a person, I think, is entitled to say, well, it's how I express.
Well, the Sikh has his 5Ks, right?
Yeah,
he carries his little sword. Why is that? I mean, this thing's an ornamental sword. This one can actually harm a human being. Why is one can be deemed more offensive? Maybe because Muslims are seen in a particular way and Sikhs are not.
Yes. Well, as I said, I don't think in an absolute sense it's possible for a state to say no, you cannot dress per se in a particular way. I'll come on to the exception in a minute. But if you want to wear a necklace, then there shouldn't be any restriction on that at all. The problem is in certain contexts where it interferes with your relations with other people. That's where the problems can arise. But the the tension, I think, is with is in certain areas. I'm thinking particularly of the banning of the niqab in France.
Yeah.
There's been a blanket ban on that.
Mm-hmm.
So, personally speaking, I mean, you know, this is only my personal view, but I would have expected the court to say, well, yes, you're entitled to restrict it if you're going to apply for benefits, or you needed it in an environment.
In court, situation, and airports,
they can make you identify yourself. But if you're in a sort of more remote area situation where you're not expected to interact with that, but nevertheless you're in a public place, then I would have expected the court to say, well, actually, no, you're not entitled to impinge on people to that extent. But the court actually said, well, from a human rights point of view, France can do that, and that creates a certain worry that there's no sort of check and balance on the state saying, well, these are the restrictions we can place on your rights of freedom of expression. Maybe a necklace is not such a good example because it's very hard for the state to complain lots of ways interfering with your interaction with society.
I think for me, Simon, it's like, when does language become extreme? Like, when does, I mean, is the niqab a form of language? Yeah, as well as verbal language.
It's the absence of language. I think the problem with the niqab in France was that there was an absence of language, the absence of interaction. This idea of these Muslims these Muslims who come here, don't want to integrate, want to do their own thing, and have no interest in
engaging the wider community and adopting the laws and the customs.
Or at least trying to interact with them and come to a sort of harmony. I think that's what it was about with their wider society.
But but for example, in France, it's a secular society.
Yeah.
The idea is secular, right? So you're gonna have a clash straight away because people who consider themselves religious, non-secular, trying to fit into a society that is secular, that will create clashes. So, I mean, does the law give flexibility for that type of interaction where you've got someone who's very religious and someone who perhaps is not religious, but they can still interact? The law's supposed to be blind to both of those views.
Well, I think the particular problem with France is you've got far right movements who will latch on symbols like the niqab to promote this idea of this.
Got that here, though. I mean, UKIP kept on doing it.
But they're not.
Jack Straw made a big thing of it, and he was like a Labour MP,
I don't think there is the right here is as prominent as in France. It is quite a big movement in France now. Yeah,
but in the last election, they didn't do too well. They did actually. Le Pen, there was a massive problems with their. So I agree.
I mean, the comparison in France. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the EDL, the BNP, they're very minor groups now. I mean, so I think that's
the fringe
groups. So
fringe groups.
I don't think the promotion of the other in the form of the niqab is such a problem as it is in France, which is why it was more sort of sensitive.
But I find it very strange because one of the things they attack Muslims on is women, and so allegedly the way we treat women. Allegedly, Muslims can marry a 9-year-old or a 6-year-old. Allegedly, women have women have to be completely covered. Every part of the woman is a fitna. And so you think they will be doing things in this society to sort of say to women, help them and maybe work with them. But it's almost as if a woman in niqab, a woman in hijab can't think for herself. That somehow she's some automaton. That she's she's not able to decide. Hey, I want to wear this niqab. Hey, I want to wear this. I mean, personally, I have a particular view about the niqab. Maybe seen as an Arab form of Arab dress per se for the desert, practical terms. Maybe not for every particular Islamic nation, but appropriate for them. But they have the right as a woman. Should they not have the right as a woman to dress how they feel they need to dress? Shouldn't the society, whether it's France or Britain or America or the West, shouldn't they be supporting her freedom of choice, her freedom of expression? Why is it somehow when a Muslim woman does it, it's somehow wrong and oppressive, but a Catholic nun can wear very similar clothing, look almost identical, but yet she's seen as a symbol of religious virtue.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not dealing with hypocrisy here on some level, really.
Yes.
In the eyes of the law.
I mean, but as I was saying, it's a sort of melting pot of all sorts of tensions, political tensions, far right groups, and you know what the courts do is sort of take a hands-off approach and say, well, that particular citizen a blessed place to deal with coping with those various tensions, you know, obviously accepting what you say about the freedom of choice and everything, but also dealing with the wider social problems of extremism, you know, far-right extremism, white extremism, so we can put it like that.
But again, I think it's hypocrisy even on an international scale. I mean, you've got, for example, let's take Saudi Arabia. Extremely conservative, ultra-conservative, very draconian laws when it comes to women, but yet we do massive amount trade with them. Turn a blind eye to all the human rights issues when we know that there's severe human rights issues over there, but yet we're prepared to jump on British-born human beings who decide to want to become Muslim and may want to wear a niqab.
Yeah, well, I quite agree with you. I mean, the good thing is the UK is not in a position that France is in. I mean, we are quite a tolerant society.
Look at Turkey, they've banned the hijab in some places as well.
Yeah, well, the niqabs come back there as well now, because again they have the Rafa Partizi party, which was an extreme, you know, the Muslim Brotherhood.
Is it Erdogan, the president Prime Minister? Is it similar to the Muslim Brotherhood? Is it?
Yeah, well, they had at one time they had the Muslim Brotherhood's party, as Rafa Partizi they were called, who were promoting particular extremist form of Islam, and when the European Court had cases from Turkey, they said, well, yeah, okay, fair enough, you're entitled to prevent, say, people from wearing the hijab in universities because it was associated with those movements and it could create a snowball effect. So again, it's a bit of hypocrisy.
A piece of cloth here could cause this much.
But the problem is that from a legal point of view, the courts often take a hands-on approach, and the state entitled to do with that. But again, in the UK, we're not at that point. I mean, I think it would be very difficult for a UK government to legislate against the niqab because it's just such a common part of, well, particularly London life, isn't it?
Yes.
That to actually sort of row back from that, I think would be too difficult.
Well,
but I'm just saying theoretically, there are dangers out there that
I think that's very important, that there are dangers out there we need to be aware of. I think that what we also got to do as well, I think maybe it's a give and take on both sides here, isn't it? I think as Muslims, maybe we should be, as you said, the most important thing is that we are in this country, we are here to stay, we're not going anywhere. Whereas British and as English and and totally tied into the fabric of this community. So we're here to stay. So I suppose we also as Muslims...
We just don't get the Eurostar to France.
Just don't get the
Eurostar. If you want to do the niqab, stay here.
Just don't, exactly. But the point is, we are in the British law. British law is the law of the land. And as Muslims, even in the Quran, it does say that we need to respect the law of the land. So I think that on that note, well, I thought it was a fantastic discussion. I think we're going to be doing lots more of these discussions around the law, because I think
Inshallah.
it's very important that we understand the law and our place in it. So until we speak again, this is Mohammed Solomon signing off from Islamic Action TV.
And from me, Simon Marciniak. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.